YouTube can throttle us.
They can suppress us.
But they can't stop a text message.
A flesh-eating parasite that America thought it defeated decades ago has just shown up again in Texas. And this is not some cable news panic story about person-to-person spread. This is worse in a different way. The New World screwworm, it attacks livestock through open wounds, burrowing into living tissue. And if ranchers miss it, the animal can die. One infected calf near the border may sound isolated. Well, it's not. The real question tonight is whether the United States can stop this thing before it reestablishes itself and turns into a devastating blow to ranchers, cattle supply chains, and food security across the country. And it's curious that we know Bill Gates has been trying to reduce America's consumption on red meat. We also know that his organizations have been behind pushing ticks across this country so that Americans can catch alpha-gal syndrome and reduce their desire to eat red meat. Are they all connected? These are questions we certainly need answers to, but here's why this matters far beyond one calf. You see, the screwworm, it was eradicated from the U.S. back in 1966 using a smart and relentless campaign that released sterilized male flies into the wild until the population collapsed. For decades, that kept American ranchers protected, but now the parasite has been moving north through Mexico, and the first confirmed case has ranchers on alert for rapidly growing, foul-smelling wounds and white egg masses in livestock. The danger here is not that Americans are about to face a human outbreak. Human outbreak cases are, in fact, rare. The danger is agricultural. These flies target warm-blooded animals, especially cattle, and once the larvae hatch, they feed on the living flesh. That means lost animals, rising costs, disrupted production, and more pressure on food prices. This is border biosecurity in real time, and unlike the neglect we saw during the previous administration, the Trump administration is moving before the worst-case scenario arrives. And speaking of getting ahead of a threat before anyone else wakes up, that brings me to tonight's sponsored message. See, this report is sponsored by Noble Gold Investments, and if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Well, of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? See, the people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic changes in history. And today, a similar opportunity is unfolding with silver because silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing economy. And demand is rising fast. So go to nextnewsgold.com right now and learn how you could also qualify for a 1/10 ounce gold coin while offers last. Now back to a threat that the Trump team is trying to crush before it tears into the heart of American agriculture. See, what makes this story so important is that the parasite itself is only half the headline. The other half is the response. See, most people hear that the government is releasing millions of flies and think it sounds absurd. Well, it's not. It's targeted eradication. Female screwworm flies usually mate only once, so if they mate with sterile males, the infestation burns out. That means the fight is not just about treating infected animals, it's about stopping an economic threat before it spreads across ranch country. And the scale of the response tells you that Washington knows exactly what is at stake. Scott Pressler posting about the flesh-eating parasite found in South Texas calf, the New World screwworm, eradicated since 1966. This parasitic fly lays eggs in the fresh wounds of warm-blooded animals. They feed on the host flesh, which, if left untreated, can cause the animal to die. It's not contagious. It does threaten the cattle industry. So cattle ranchers should be on the lookout for rapidly growing foul-smelling wounds that have white egg masses. Take a look.
The United States has confirmed the case of New World screwworm in Texas cattle, raising alarm for the country's livestock industry. The parasitic fly lays eggs in open wounds, its larvae burrowing into living tissue, causing severe damage and, if untreated, death. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says the infestation was found in a calf near the U.S.-Mexico border. It marks the first confirmed case in Texas since 1966, and a major concern for ranchers as the pest has steadily moved north through Mexico. Authorities are moving quickly, imposing quarantines, increasing surveillance, and treating livestock in affected areas. Officials are also expanding outreach and distributing treatments to stop the spread. Screwworms most often enter through wounds and can affect livestock, wildlife, pets, and in rare cases, people. The USDA says sterile flies are being released to suppress the population. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rowland says the situation is being contained and insists the U.S. food supply remains safe. Still, the outbreak poses a significant economic risk, with Texas livestock losses potentially reaching billions of dollars if screwworm spread.
So that's the basics. The flesh-eating parasite back in Texas, a calf infected, USDA moving with quarantines and sterile flies. Now CBS lays out how this thing burrows into living tissue and why ranchers are treating it like a real border zone threat.
Discovery of the New World screwworm fly back in the U.S. The name kind of gives away why this fly is a problem. The fly finds an open wound or even a scratch on an animal or a person, and that's where it lays its eggs. The fly then develops by feeding off of that host. It can be incredibly painful for animals, fatal in some cases. We've been holding off the fly for years from Panama. Scientists developed a way in the 60s to breed sterile screwworm flies. Then when they would drop them out of airplanes by the millions, the flies out in the wild were unable to reproduce. Using that strategy, they pushed this fly south, out of the United States, out of Mexico, all the way down through Central America, using that exact same strategy. During the pandemic, there were some breakdowns in the process and in surveillance. There was additional movement of people and animals to the north. And the fly, screwworms, started to spread again. Once that became evident, the U.S. started devoting more resources to trying to stop it. They started to prepare a location in Mexico to breed more sterile flies. They prepared an old base in the South U.S. to be able to receive sterile flies and drop them again. And right now the work is ongoing to try to breed sterile flies again in the U.S. That in itself is significant. Researchers have told me that the fly is considered to be so dangerous, they can't even get their hands on live samples. They've had to go south to Panama to study them. The big concern here is if these flies impact the ability of ranchers to have calves. If they have to limit the seasons because they can't have calves in the warm season when the fly is active, that starts to impact how much they're able to rebuild their herds. It impacts the ability of wildlife to survive. And yes, in some cases, it could impact pets and people. There's been surveillance ongoing for months and months and months. State and federal agencies have been training on where to watch for the fly, how to trap it, how to recognize it. They have been developing therapeutics and ointments and treatments in the hope that once it was here, they could get on it right away. But now it is here. It's well across the border. It's about 100 miles southwest of San Antonio. And the battle is now not just something that scientists are expecting to happen. It is here.
Interesting that they would be dropping sterile flies from airplanes, as we've heard the stories of Bill Gates funding ticks, and these ticks landing in boxes all across America. CBS showing the dangers and the years of breakdowns and that let the menace creep north. Next, Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins explains what the Trump team is doing right now, fast-tracking a massive Texas sterile fly facility and sending emergency veterinary stockpiles to South Texas. Secretary Rollins testifying that we have immediate approval.
To take just a moment on the New World screwworm. So It is a vexing challenge that we thought we had beaten in the 1960s and 1970s. As I mentioned, unfortunately, that was wrong as the screwworm began to make its way back towards us in 2021. The way we defeated it before, you need about 400 million sterile flies per week to actually mate with the bad flies, sterilize them, and then, of course, the way that the flesh is in wounds becomes open to these screwworms, which are actually flies. The flies land in the wound, they lay their eggs. The larva then is what actually eats the flesh. If you catch it right away, you can save the animal and put them back into the supply system after a number of days. If you don't catch it right away, then that's where the problem ensues. Back when we did beat it, again, as I mentioned, it's about 400 million sterile flies a week, and that was in the 1960s, 1970s. Because over years we as a country, we as a hemisphere, had taken our eye off the ball, thinking it was eradicated. We got down to only 100 million sterile flies in production a week in a facility in Panama. So that is what the country, not me or USDA, but the country really had relied on to keep it out of Central America and Mexico, et cetera. So here we are. When we got in last year, I was presented with the information. It's starting to move its way up. I went to the president and I said, this is going to be a massive problem because we need 400 million to 500 million flies per week to beat this back. We only have one facility in our entire hemisphere, and it's only producing 100 million flies per week. So got immediate approval to begin permitting and construction on what will be the largest facility in the world on this, and that is being built right now in Mission, Texas. So instead of a couple years of permitting, our Army Corps of Engineers, our Secretary of the War, put it at the top of the list, got it fast-tracked, and we broke ground about 3 or 4 months ago. That facility will come online next year. When it does, it'll produce about 300 million flies per week, in addition to the 100 million from Panama, and then we outfitted an additional Mexican facility in Matapa for another $100 million. So we will get back to the point where we're able to push it back and eradicate it, but until that point, which is likely sometime next year, our effort in trapping, surveillance, we had FDA fast track a lot of treatment. We've got a national veterinary supply stockpile that was loaded onto a plane this morning, is headed to South Texas right now. I've already done a lot of press on this, so making sure that we're over communicating, especially to our producers, is paramount. Of course, for Arizona, New Mexico, and California, it's also a challenge, but the screwworm continues to be between 500 and 800 miles away from those borders. It's really South Texas where we're really combating this every day. The point of that, Mr. Chairman, is that we're on it. We've invested almost $1 billion since we came in the door last year to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
So the Trump administration on the case, but here's the part that should get every American's attention. Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins says the Trump administration has already fast-tracked construction of what will become the largest sterile fly production facility in the world, right in Texas. The Army Corps pushed it to the top of the list. Ground was broken months ago. When it comes online next year, it's expected to produce about 300 million flies a week on top of existing output from Panama and support from an additional Mexican facility. At the same time, the FDA fast-tracking treatments and a national veterinary stockpile loaded onto a plane and sent to South Texas, and that is what competent government looks like. Not denial, not delay, action. Fast, focused, America First action aimed at eradication and not surrender. So let's be very clear about what the real story is. Yes, the screwworm is disgusting. Yes, it's dangerous, but the biggest headline is that America is in a race to stop a biological threat to ranching, cattle production, agriculture, trade, and food stability before it digs in. And that's why this matters. And for once, the federal government is not waiting around for disaster to spread before acting. The Trump administration is treating this like a national security challenge that it is, a biosecurity challenge. And that is exactly what Americans should demand. Protect the border, protect food safety, protect food supply, protect the ranchers who feed this country. If this parasite is crushed now, it'll happen because decisive action happened early. If not, the cost gets a lot higher. So share this report, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Next News Network so more Americans understand what's really happening. And a simple yes or no. Do you trust the Trump administration to eliminate the screwworm before it spreads nationwide? Let's have a conversation, and let's get you connected with me directly. Let's cut out the middleman, shall we? Yes, I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated when those notifications never arrive. You can't seem to find our videos when the algorithm decides to present you CNN and MSNBC instead of the truth. Well, that's why we set up this number. 844-840-4963. You see it on your screen right there. Thousands of patriots, thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to that number. I want you to be the next one to get on the insiders list so you never miss the important news that you are entitled to from us. And we're celebrating America 250. Are you? I hope you will. I hope you'll join us too. So check out the Next News merch shelf below this video or check the link and pick out something you like, and let's celebrate America 250 together.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.